Um, well, I guess I'll start by saying, as Ruth mentioned, for a long time, I kind of just wanted to, if not leave Florida, leave the U.S. and then go somewhere very, very far. But I kept asking around where I could serve, where I could do my year of service. Some people mentioned South America, some people mentioned like volunteering at the World Center in Haifa, and all of it sounded great, but I guess I didn't, not that I didn't like the idea at the time, but I just figured something else would happen. And it wasn't until about maybe at the beginning of 2013.
I went to orientation, but that was
my mom was there. She went to the National
for the
Center.
LSAs.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's when they told her about that there's the Baltic Initiative. And they also mentioned that a lot of pioneers who were a part of the Baltic Initiative were being funded to be there. So that also...
What is a pioneer?
For people who don't know.
That's not for you.
This is true. A pioneer, basically you leave your home. You can also be a home front pioneer, but it's usually when you dedicate at least a year of your time to serving the faith and serving in the activities. So children's classes, or helping to establish the junior youth groups for 11 to 14-year-olds in different communities, or holding like devotional gatherings where you can get together with your community and say prayers and just create a spiritually uplifting environment. So they, every now and then, people or Baha'is are asked to pioneer in different countries, in countries where they have smaller Baha'i communities. And at the time I heard about the Baltic Initiative, and I was like, okay, I'll apply for this, and I did. And I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know how fast anything would happen, but that was my first step to finally pioneering, so I was satisfied. And I went to the orientation.
June 13th.
I went to the orientation.
Yeah, the ticket is in my. The itinerary is in my prayer book. And I know this morning, because some people don't like to do things on the 13th, but Raheem is born on the 13th. It's not unlucky, but I was just everything just happened so fast. You know, we asked about it in April. She was at orientation in June, and I mean the end of April. She was at orientation in June, and she was gone August 5, which is the same day that years apart that we came here to Florida.
Wow. That's very significant. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So I went to this 3-day orientation in Chicago, and at the time I didn't know where I would be. But I remember there was a map on the wall, and there were about 4 other potential pioneers there. One guy was going to move to Estonia in a month. So I was like, okay, I applied for the Baltic Initiative. I'll probably see you within the next few months or so. And another girl was going to Russia, all the way to the east in a city called Vladivostok. Another girl was going to Chile. And so they all put their name and a pin on the map. And they're like, okay, Roya, your turn to go up and say what country you're going to. And I was like, I don't know. So one of the women there, she just put my name in like some Siberian region.
Oh my God.
And I was like, that's not gonna work.
No.
I can't move there. But after the orientation, they're like, just keep praying, you'll be confirmed, you'll find a place. And I was getting kind of nervous because everyone else at the orientation was moving.
But it's already
Very
set
soon.
except you.
So I was like, I'm the only, just my luck, I'm actually not going anywhere. But a few weeks later, I got a call, and one of the people from Chicago, he was like, oh, how about Russia? You can join the Russian initiative. We'll send you to a Russian university so you can take language classes.
Oh my God.
And I said okay, but I really wasn't okay with it at all. Like, I grew up on an island, then I moved to South Florida, and I'll have to deal with winter in Russia.
Yeah. Not a good choice.
Yeah. So he just hung up the phone and I was like, great. I agreed to something I don't actually know what to do. But maybe a week after that, I got an email, and it was like, congratulations for applying and thank you and whatnot, but we hope that you can settle in Podgorica, Montenegro. I was like, okay, this must be for the wrong person. This isn't in the Baltics. This isn't Russia. But
Did you know where Montenegro was at that time?
Yeah, no.
You thought it was Russia or?
no, I was just like, this is odd. This is not a place that I've heard much of anything about.
Now, didn't you stop in Albania first?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was why I had to move so soon, because there were youth conferences going around all over the world that the Universal House of Justice, the governing body of the Bahai faith, they called upon youth all over to really try to bring about change in their communities and their societies. And it started with these youth conferences. And I was planning on going to one that was in about at the time, about a month away in Atlanta, to go with my community and my youth friends from workshop and whatnot. But then they're like, okay, well, you have to be in Albania by the time they have their youth conference. So when we did actually fly to Montenegro, we were there for maybe 3 days, and then we went straight to Albania. So before I even really knew my neighborhood, we were going to Albania. And I didn't realize how important that conference was until after, because the conference in Albania was with all of the Balkan countries. So there was like Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia, Bulgaria, Albania, Macedonia. And I remember during the conference, one guy stood up and he was like, it's so diverse here, and I've never felt so, I've never had people from all of these countries be so kind to me before. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was just talking about people being nice in general. But now that I've been in Montenegro for a while, and now that I have gotten to learn about the history of the region and the country, it's, even though the wars have stopped, there's still
Animosity.
a lot of, and like in Montenegro, they say, oh, we don't like Croatians, oh, Croatians don't like Serbians. So now it makes sense that people felt the way they did at the youth conference.
And when you left the States, what route did you take? You went to London or left Frankfurt or?
Well, since the other pioneer that we traveled together, she was from Jacksonville, so we decided to meet in Orlando, and then we went from Orlando to JFK to New York, then from New York to Turkey, and then from Turkey to Montenegro.
The flight was delayed, and then the bags didn't reach. In JFK, she had her laptop in her hand luggage. They weighed the hand luggage and said it was too heavy, and made her put her laptop and took the hand luggage from it, and then the bags didn't reach. And that's exactly what I said for 2 days till I knew it got there. Apparently, it just sits there and then essentially. Yeah,
because the time between the flight, our connection in Istanbul was 1 hour. So it's basically an hour for us to go from one part of the airport to another. And everyone's like, well, good luck, that airport's huge. But then the flight was delayed an hour, so we barely made it to our gate. Like, we told one guy, we're like, oh, our ticket doesn't have the gate on it yet, because we didn't go through any process there. And he was like, okay, he just pointed to one guy, said something in Turkish, and he was like, okay, run. And so,
Run as fast as you can.
we were like running after this one guy, and the guy was checking all of these monitors and somehow guided us to our flight.
Wow.
Like, right when we sat down, there was like 15 minutes before they started closing the plane. So we figured, okay, if we made it, barely, there's no way our luggage did. No way. But wasn't the best way to enter Montenegro, my new home, but there were 2 Baha'is there before we even arrived. They'd been looking for apartments for us, so the day we got there, we basically chose where we would live. So that helped a lot. We didn't have to worry about where we would stay. But that was the one positive thing about arriving there. Like, we were welcome to a very nice, super small community. There were only 4.
What year was that?
2013. This was August 2013.
They met them with signs. The people look like, the people, because they look so different from our people. They look like giants. Okay, Roya looked like an ant beside the girl.
Montenegrins are
Cute?
apparently they're the tallest in the region.
Really?
Yeah.
So and in addition to that, the family Barbara and Ayla, who they do things a lot with. The father played basketball, and I don't think he was the short one on the team. So I mean, Roya, you reach Ayla's waist or something. It just looks
They were
that way.
that tall? And you're tall. You're not short, right?
Yeah, she.
Now I know I am.
You adjust.
I thought I was pretty tall.
You and
There, right now there's 4. Or, well, kind of 5. There was one guy that we didn't know about for a long time. An Italian man, Piero. He's about, like, in his 70s, I think. He had gone to Montenegro before and fell in love with Montenegro, so just moved there. And he lives on the coast. So he's considered a pioneer also, and he's living there. So I guess there's about 5 of us. But so they're 2 youth pioneers and then older Australian couple. And they lived there for about 2 years before we moved. And when we got there, they moved back to Australia.
But they're not Australian, they're Persian. They're not Australian.
Yeah, but they're
They're Australian residents.
yeah. So now they've moved back, and I'm told they'll go back to Australia again, maybe within 6 months. So that's one thing that made this whole process kind of difficult, because we entered the community not really knowing what we would be doing. It was only really until we had a conference in Belgrade, Serbia, in November. So a few months after we moved, that we even knew that they wanted us focusing on establishing junior youth groups and helping to raise local resources, because they're not of pioneers who would be there, who are choosing that country as their post permanently. So of course you need local people to continue everything that's been started.
What's the local religion?
The majority would be Serbian Orthodox, at least in Montenegro and Serbia. I think in Croatia most people are Catholic, and then in Bosnia it's
Muslim.
yeah.
But Serbian Orthodox is different from Russian Orthodox. I mean, it's its own branch.
It's still Christian.
It's still Christian, but it's just
different.
It's Orthodox.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how different they are, but if you ask anyone in the region, they'll tell you like, oh no, it's not.
Like Russian Orthodox.
Yeah.
How open are they to other religions?
Since they're very traditional, even though a lot of people we've met and a lot of our friends, they're like, yes, I am Serbian Orthodox, but I don't really believe in God, or I'm Serbian Orthodox, but just because like that's what my family is. So we found that maybe half of our friends, they're kind of like, okay, I've been saying that I follow this religion of my family for all these years, but I don't, now that someone's actually asked me about it, I don't know that much. So a lot of them have told us that they've been seeking new things, and they've been trying to understand what God and spirituality means to them. But then there are others that are just Serbian Orthodox. That's all. That's all I need. But
It's mostly young people that are open to possibilities, not the older people.
yeah. But some of the older people, they do still appreciate, I guess, kind of a new outlook in the region.
These countries.
I know in Montenegro there was only one new believer, but they made it clear to us when we first moved, like, that our goal isn't really to create new believers in the region, just specifically junior youth and raising local resources, and whatever happens after that is fine. But I don't think, at least in the Balkans, I'm not sure how it is in the Russian initiative or in the Baltic initiative, how it's been going, but I don't think there are a lot of new Baha'is. Because at least in the Balkans, we're all kind of dealing with the same thing. How people, they're like, oh, that's such a great program. It's nice that you came here to do this, but our country won't change for another 30 to 50 years or something. And then there's some who really and truly believe that it will never change. As even with some youth, because they've had the same president and prime minister from maybe about 25 years. So since they've been born, the same guy has been in power. And they know that even before him, it was another family member of his. So we had, at least in our neighborhood, we had, and then it kind of fell apart. And there's one in another neighborhood that's been started recently. But I think our problem was we didn't meet with their parents soon enough. So it was kind of like, okay, who are these two foreigners with my kids?
Yeah.
So we know that next time we have to kind of build that relationship. And we had also just moved into a new neighborhood, so no one around even knew us. So that's why we've been kind of focusing on devotional meetings more, because we've gotten to know the neighborhood a little bit better. We walk around a lot, we meet a lot of our neighbors, and now we have friends in the neighborhood, so we're not complete strangers anymore.
So,
I know for us, we're probably not doing day planning as well as we should be, or compared to the other pioneers, but usually we try to just meet with our friends for coffee, just for a little while, just connect with them and build a friendship that we have. And some days we have specific things planned, like to help out with one of the junior youth groups, or we'll have a study circle with one of our friends. But most of our days are, at least since moving into a new neighborhood, have been how can we meet more people in our community. And so we also go visiting friends that we have and just stopping by and saying hello to the family, because for us, we tried to rush things the same way that they did in some of the other countries, and it wasn't working for us, because Montenegrins, like, you can't just bring anything to them. You have to really build a bond with them. And so they were saying, oh, you guys should deepen on certain subjects and bring them when you're having coffee with your friends, and then start a conversation about the junior youth. And we were just like, that doesn't feel natural at all to just, hey, let's meet for coffee. Oh, why don't we like take out this little pamphlet? But since they know why we're here, it's not hard to have conversations about spirituality or God or just anything like virtues. But
And who are your friends there?
literally random people, because when, at least for me, since I'm so obviously not from there, people will just stop me and ask like why. No,
really?
no. Some people have randomly touched my hair, like if I go out, or, but not so much like.
Is it because they haven't seen a black person, or?
Yeah.
Probably never.
They've seen. It's funny because there's one neighborhood where a lot of Roma families live, and there are also a lot of Egyptian refugees there. So there are like a lot of black men in that neighborhood, and sometimes they come to the center of the city just walking around, but there are no black women. So I still, part of me still,
vacations.
yeah, Naomi Campbell, apparently like her
Like,
boyfriend or ex-boyfriend was the owner of this one resort on the coast.
I remember that.
So she's there every now and then, just kind of hanging out with like, I don't know, Serbian models. But so I get, and still I don't know how, but I get a lot of weird reactions. At first it was just a lot of staring, a lot of pointing, a lot of shouting random things. But
do you know what they were saying?
well, usually they'll either call me like Nutella or chocolate or black girl in Serbian.
And what does that girl in Serbian mean? How do you say?
Srkinja.
What does it say again?
Srkinja just means black woman. And then they think it's funny because then I'll say like white man to them.
Good.
Like, oh wow, she
Good
learned
boy. Good.
Serbian. But it's just like so easily entertained sometimes.
But I think there was something where she had said recently somebody was crossing the street
Yeah.
and just like took a picture and
Are you
Ayla like cussed him out. You know, like, what are you doing? This is so. He was like, no, it was a car.
You both loaded the car.
And that's another thing, they'll take pictures and not even shy about it. I went to a show and this one girl just like and I was like, are you serious? And even her friend was like, what are you doing? You can't just take pictures of people
Did
like
she ask you to smile?
It's almost as if something you do with a cute cat. I'm sorry. It's
Probably.
yeah, it's not. It's you know, it's like object. Oh well, you know, I don't know how to say anything to her, so I'm just going to take a picture.
That's how celebrities feel.
You're
famous.
That's half the reason why I stopped trying to practice the language. I mean, that's my own fault. I would have gotten a lot farther, but when I would go grocery shopping or something, like I already have store clerks like stopping what they're doing, somebody tapping their other friend on the shoulder to look. But the second I ask for something, there's just, oh, that's so cute. Oh, say it again. You.
Oh God,
I
wait.
don't want to hear that. I
don't want to be the show of the day.
On the flip side, is there a large English-speaking population?
A lot of people do speak English. We haven't had much of a problem with language barriers. Usually there's always someone else. Like if we've met someone who doesn't speak English too well, they always have a friend who's like, oh no, I'll translate. Because most people are happy to at least practice their English.
How's the cost of living versus here?
Low.
I thought it was very low. I thought most things were very inexpensive. But, because I guess in Florida, at least in South Florida, like an apartment is maybe $700 and up for like a one-bedroom apartment per month or something. In Montenegro, they're more around $300 to $500. We're like, okay, that's not bad. That's pretty good. But there, an apartment will go for maybe 230 or 300 euros, but that's also close to the maximum salary that most people will make. So it's very, very expensive.
So because it's a traditional type environment, people live at home for generations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like especially the neighborhood that we live in now, it's mostly bigger homes because the whole family will live there. So right where I live, it's like 3 generations just in one block. But so most people, you live with your parents until you get married, and even some cases once you get married you still all move in.
So Roya, explain to me, you started a junior youth, you gathered up youth, give me I'm curious, are you going to do that further on?
Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program. It's a program that's supposed to be for 11 to 14-year-olds. It's like a junior youth group for junior youth by junior youth. So it's one where they can get together and use a lot of the energy that they have at that age towards something positive, such as community service and helping to like become agents of change in their own communities. And so there's a vision, if we all start in our individual communities, at one point it will become something bigger, so they change the community and begin to change society. But when we went to the conferences, that was always what they wanted us focusing on. And when we moved to Montenegro, we're like, okay, we have this neighborhood, there are kids everywhere, how do we reach out to them? But the two Baha'is, they were like, oh, we had a junior youth group a little while ago, but we stopped, you guys can probably take that over. So we had just one day, we're like, okay, let's meet them. We had a bunch of junior youth come to our place, and they're really excited to start the program, but we soon realized that the program was, how it was presented to them was, hey, we have this program, the books are in English, your children will get to learn English. So they didn't really have much of an idea of the program and like the importance of the program. And then when we wanted to meet their parents, the family was like, oh, you know, we shouldn't really do that so soon since you guys don't know them yet. They more know us, and also like if you start talking about the Baha'i faith, they might not have their kids stay in the junior youth group. And we're like, okay. And we're like, okay, we're gonna start this study circle with this person, continue this. We'll reconnect with the junior youth group that we had in our community. But now that it was just only a few weeks ago, the other pioneer with me, she was going to stay until 2016, but she decided she's probably gonna leave in March.
Really?
So
before you do?
Yeah. Which was very surprising.
Wow.
So she may leave in March. I will probably leave during the summer, and then the Australian couple, they might be leaving around the same time. So that brings it all the way back down to the Baha'i family. So now I figure what we should all be doing is helping them in whatever way we can.
When you say they told us, who are they?
Our counselors. There's our counselor is from Ukraine, and she oversees Serbia and Montenegro. And then
and how old is she? 26?
She's 26, yeah.
How can they evaluate in a year and a half program like this? I mean, if you're shifting all the time, I mean, it's not enough to build a community or a relationship. You know, there's to be able to talk about or do something. It should be at least 3 years, you know, to do something. So how do they evaluate all this?
I know, especially for Montenegro, they were a little worried, and I guess they expressed that they wish they did things a little differently for the country as far as the pioneers that they brought. Because now that they see, okay, we need people who are going to be here a lot longer than what we've initially asked for. But in the other communities, there are people who do live there. So in Bosnia, there's a Baha'i family that's been in Bosnia for a very long time. And they have a little more of a community. But for Montenegro, they were kind of just like, all right, 2 fresh new pioneers who can get a few things started. But yeah, Montenegro, I don't think had any pioneers until the Australian couple came. So it was just
so there's no guarantee like of a new group coming that you guys can pass on whatever you've worked on to them. There's no, I guess, no guarantee that may happen, I guess.
And even if we talk about it a lot, like who will come to replace us, but even if that does happen, it's just it's not even people continuing. You have to start over.
So what's been if you had to identify one focal point as your biggest accomplishment in the last 2 years there, what would it be?
I think building sincere friendships with like the small group of friends that we have. Because at first everyone's like, let's meet these foreigners. We're on board for whatever you're on board for. But we realized, okay, they're not really interested. They just are hanging out with us, and then, okay, we've gotten our pictures. We said we did now. But now we have friends who are actually not only interested in what we're doing, but we're very interested in their lives and gotten to meet their families and whatnot. And now we're actually part of each other's lives. And for a long time, I just figured, I was like, I don't know, everyone's very close, they know who they know, and they're fine with that, so I don't know how we're going to really get into anyone's like circle. But just out of nowhere, 1 month, one of our friends was like, oh, me and some friends are hanging out, you guys should come. And that never happens. Usually when we meet someone, we'd only meet up with them. No one would really introduce us to their other friends, no one would introduce us to their families. So the moment that happened, we realized something had changed. And that I think is still one of the biggest
recently, a little before she came home,
I think to really they'd have to really detach themselves. Because I mean,
Detach, what do you mean?
In many different ways. So in prayers at least, they say like detach yourself from yourself. So not make things about you, and detach yourself from a lot of material things as well. Because the first few months we're like, oh, we don't have this here, we don't have that here, what will we do? But, and then when things went wrong, a lot of the times we're just always, shoot, we should have done this. It's because we did this wrong, it's because we did that wrong. Of course we could have done things differently, but when the months when we'd spend so much time blaming ourselves for something that failed, it really changed our attitude when we went about doing something else, because we already had this mindset of doubt. But because I thought the hardest thing would be being away from family and friends, but there's the internet, then Skype and email and Facebook, all of these apps that you can use to communicate with people. So that was probably the easiest part. But and also because the like grocery shopping and the produce in general is very cheap. And most of the fast food, if we're just in the center of the city, now we live a lot farther from the center, so if we're there, we'll get a slice of pizza or a little burger or something. But that, yeah, we don't do that too often.
It seems though on this end of it, I'm really grateful for Skype, because I don't always Skype visually see her, but you can Skype message really easy. But it always seems to me that I'll have to call you back. I'm on my way for coffee, 9, 10 at night. So I don't get that.
Wow. Do you go to bed after coffee at 10 o'clock at night?
Now I can. At first I would
get jittery?
Yeah.
11 o'clock at night, jittery.
There's like a huge coffee culture there.
Is it good coffee?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I never drank coffee before, so I'm not sure.
You have nothing to compare it to.
But everyone who's been to the U.S. says it's definitely better than coffee here.
But Maritza used to try her best
that's not a good
at Starbucks.
But on food, do you like the food there? The cooking?
I do. I do like Montenegrin food. I haven't had a lot of traditional Montenegrin food, but one of our friends, if I go over to her house, usually if her grandmother's there, then there's always amazing
Do they eat a lot of bread also in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the Balkan area.
But what about fish? If Trevor visits,
Yeah.
he's vegetarian.
They have
Right by the water.
yeah,
Not really. Just,
and there's a river that runs through the city, and a lot of if there's fish served, it's usually from the Maracha River. It's really good. And luckily, there's one part of in the city right next to the hospital. That's when the river just gets really not so great. But usually they do the fishing north of there, and it's fine. And during the summer, you can go swimming in it, so it's nice.
I think Roya managed to meet somebody from Trinidad there.
Really?
Yeah.
From Trinidad?
Yeah. I was at
That was a bit shocking.
With a Trini accent too.
at a Halloween party down by the coast.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Halloween, they celebrate Halloween?
That was one of the very few places.
Oh, okay.
We went out and there were maybe 6 people in costumes, and we're like, "Where are you guys going? There's a Halloween party here," and they're like, "No, but we dress up anyway." But there was an actual event in one city, Tivat, and she just came up to me and she's like, "Where are you from?" I was like, "Oh, I'm actually from the Caribbean." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And it was really loud and I couldn't really hear anything. But then I was in the bathroom washing my hands, and she's like, "Which island are you from?" I was like, "St. Thomas." I was not expecting her to know. I was gonna have to go into how it's just a speck in the ocean, it's not always labeled. And she was like, "Oh, okay, I'm from Trinidad."
Wow.
And it,
What?
No.
And what is she doing there?
she was a teacher at an elementary school.
Oh my goodness! Is she from black or East Indian or white?
She was, I think she was white. That was the only time I saw her. By the time I contacted her again, she was already going back to Trinidad.
Yeah.
But it was cool because she had friends in Podgorica, where I live. And so a few random people were like, "Yeah, I'm from St. Thomas." "Oh, in the Caribbean." "Oh yeah, Dorothy lived in some island." I was like, "I know her."
But
That's awesome.
it was fun. Roya was there like a month before we started pronouncing the city properly, because we were saying Podgorica or something, and then that wasn't the correct. But
It looks like Podgorica,
yeah,
but the C makes like a S noise. So it's